Hey guys, it's Jess. Today I'm back for a video about identity. We're going to be specifically reviewing this film called Sound of Metal. It's actually one of my favorite films of all time. I rewatched it recently and decided to make a video about identity. The movie is about a drummer that loses his hearing, so of course everything comes into question about his life because his entire identity revolves around music, and music revolves heavily on the ability to hear. This film really got me thinking about the word identity, what it means, and how clothing can say a lot about who we are and our identity. First of all, I'm going to start by talking about the word identity. What is identity? Well, it's our humanity. We can't really get around it. Each one of us has an identity, whether we like it or not. The four things that determine your identity includes your sense of significance, purpose, values, and personal qualities. You could argue that the choices we make influence subconsciously our psychology and the things in our life. But again, there's an element of things we can't control. A lot of different things can determine identity beyond the four things that I mentioned previously: society, family, loved ones, ethnicity, race, culture, location, opportunities, media, interests, appearance, self-expression, and life experiences. These are all things that we're seeing through the clothes in the two characters in the film. The sense of significance and purpose, of course, we all struggle with on a daily basis, and the values are also things that we question every single day. So you could say that identity is constantly evolving and changing, which goes to show, in a film, a costume designer usually has to keep in mind the progression of the story and play out each character's evolution throughout the film in the clothes. So we're gonna be doing that first off with Ruben. Throughout the film, we're in Ruben's point of view, so of course it's the most intense character in the film that we're following. It's also quite devastating to see all of the intense changes in his life. We're seeing a lot of things reflected in his clothes because of this. He is a musician, so he's very artistic and expressive. So again, it's even easier to be able to tell through his clothes how he's feeling in that given scene. What we can determine from the beginning about Ruben, even from the first scene, is that his life completely revolves around music. He is on the road, he is with his girlfriend that is also in a band with him. They perform music, they're on tour, and even their house is on wheels so that they're able to tour together and constantly be making new music. So his life is completely revolved around his lifestyle of music. This includes his sense of purpose, his significance, his personal qualities, and his values. They all somehow tie back to music. Even his choice of relationship, a partner that he makes music with, this even further determines his identity in music. This is confirmed in clothing because right off the bat, we see him wearing a lot of band t-shirts, ripped, shredded punk bands, obscure music references, things that only somebody in the industry would be familiar with. We see him wearing a lot of combat boots, skinny jeans, ripped jeans, black jeans, more ripped up muscle tees and band t-shirts. Again, a lot of obscure references that shows that he really does his research. He is very familiar with obscure band names, punk names. He's familiar with the metal industry and he wants to wear that. He wants to display it and he wants to share it. It is his expression and passion, and he wears it on his body. That is the choice every single day to reflect outwardly his inside identity that revolves around music. We choose every single day what to wear. This is a choice. And whatever we feel passionate about or whatever is on the inside is going to be reflected on the outside. He expresses himself passionately through drums, so his music is screaming on his t-shirts, and we know that he is very open about his identity in music. He wants the world to know this is who he is. He's very passionate about everybody else knowing who he is in his music. We also know, without getting too much into Lou right off the bat, that they share a lot of clothing. You see them in one scene wearing a t-shirt, and then in the next scene the opposite person is wearing the same t-shirt. So again, the fact that he is wearing his significant other's clothes shows that he is very drawn, very close, and passionate about this relationship. He probably identifies himself quite a bit through his relationship as well. We know from psychology that people, when they wear their significant other's clothing, there are actual psychological effects, and it makes you feel automatically good because you feel protected and loved and close to your significant other. So he definitely identifies quite a bit by his relationship with Lou. So we've determined that his qualities, significance, purpose, and values revolve around his relationship with Lou, that is also in his band, and also with music. He expresses this very outwardly through his clothing, and he's not afraid to show it. He also has bleach blonde hair, which is, again, a very traditional punk metal type of thing to do. So this is a very expected thing for someone like Ruben. So now that we've established his identity in the beginning of the film, obviously, I'm not going to be spoiling too much about the movie, but of course the whole movie is about him losing his hearing. So the inciting incident occurs and we see that he is in fact losing his hearing until he persistently keeps playing music very loudly, and it exasperates his eardrums and he completely loses his hearing. So despite the advice of the doctor, please prevent any loud noises to keep the hearing you have, he keeps playing music and keeps on as if there were no issue. And of course, the consequence is that he completely loses his hearing. His identity is so wrapped up in music that he cannot compromise even for his health. Even if it means that he loses his hearing, he cannot compromise on his identity because it's who he is. This shows that he really has nothing outside of music and his relationship that he identifies by. He is resisting change, and he will not accept that there is something occurring in his life that will probably take away all of his identity in music. Probably take away his relationship, his music, his band, the tour. So we see him consistently wearing more and more of the same clothes as a blanket, protecting his identity that he's so attached to. Throughout the entire film, we see that he keeps saying, we need to get back to it. We can't compromise this. We need to get back on the road. Lou, we need to keep making music. I'll make it work. I can read your cues. He is, at this point, very desperate to stay close to his identity. They use their way of dressing as a last resort to latch on and stay close to what they have left of their identity. So clothing can actually be a blanket. As I said earlier, when you wear your significant other's clothing, it can have effects on your body, your psychology, and your brain that it makes you feel close to that person. At this point in the movie, we see he is forced to adapt to a new situation without his hearing, and he ends up going to a local deaf community where he is sponsored to stay for some time to learn sign language and adapt without hearing. Even though now he's in a completely different scene than the metal scene we see him in earlier, he is still dressed exactly the same. But at the very end, I would say I associate the ending scene with peace, and we do see him wearing this brown warm jacket, which I very much feel peaceful when I see this jacket. And I don't think the costume designer was intending for that, but the color brown and this particular jacket and the beanie he's wearing is very comforting and peaceful to look at. It's also not as aggressive and hardcore as all of the metal t-shirts and ripped shirts, black jeans and chain that we were seeing earlier in the film. So now we can see that he's finally accepted and found peace in the reality of his situation. In conclusion, why does identity matter? And why does it matter what our clothing says about us? It's something we can't do away with. As Bill Cunningham once said, it's like trying to do away with our humanity or being a civilian. I'll put the exact quote here because Bill Cunningham said it much better than me. But the point is that clothing is something that we have to engage in whether we like it or not. And it's a choice. We choose how we feel that day. We choose what to wear. Even if it's somewhat of a subconscious choice, because we don't know why we feel like wearing pink and not yellow, it's still somewhat of a choice, reflecting how we feel and how we want society to see that choice. It is an outward expression of the inside. It is also psychology. There are so many layers to clothing, but it all comes down to identity. And the reason it matters is that we're able to be more self-aware of who we are and why we choose this, and why do we choose to look this way? Do we want people to see us this way? And Life can sometimes throw us off of our identity. It can take something away from us that we identify ourselves by. Well, that's it for today, guys, and that's the end of my espresso. That's another video, another movie, and another costume analysis. So if you enjoy this type of content, please consider liking and subscribing. If you have any thoughts on identity, clothing, or even Sound of Metal, of course, it's an incredible film. I highly recommend that you see it for yourself. So let me know in the comments below what you think, and tune in for more. I post weekly about movies, costumes, art, and fashion. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.